Political parties. For a lot of us, they're the most visible and, yeah, maybe the most frustrating part of democracy. But here's the big question. Are they a problem we can actually get rid of? Or are they a kind of necessary evil we just can't live without? That's what we're going to figure out.
I mean, it's a fair question, right? Think about it. Whenever the economy struggles or a big policy fails, it feels like all fingers point in the exact same direction, straight at the political parties. And the accusations are pretty serious. We tend to see them as the root of all our social divisions, a hotbed for corruption, and basically a machine for making promises that, well, never seem to come true. It's really no wonder that public trust can hit rock bottom. But hang on, what if we've been looking at this all wrong? What if, for all their obvious flaws, political parties are the very engine that makes a huge, complex democracy even work? And what if, without them, we'd have something way, way worse? That's the real tension we're going to tackle in this explainer. Okay, so to figure this out, we really need to get back to basics. If you strip away all the headlines and the outrage, what is the fundamental job of a political party? What are they even for? At its heart, it's actually this simple. A political party is just a group of people who've organized with a common goal: to compete in elections, to win, and then to hold the power to govern. They do that by creating policies and programs that they hope will win popular support. And a party isn't just one big, faceless thing. It helps to think of it in 3 layers. First, you've got the leaders at the very top. They're the ones making the big strategic calls. Then you have the active members, the volunteers and workers on the ground to make everything happen. And finally, you have the largest group, the followers. That's the everyday citizens, you and me, who feel aligned with that party. So what do these parties actually do all day? Well, their job description is massive. The main event, of course, is contesting elections by putting candidates forward. But from there, it just branches out. They take millions of different opinions and try to bundle them into a somewhat coherent set of policies. The winner gets to form and run the government, while the losers, well, they play the super important role of the opposition. And all along, they're shaping public opinion and acting as that crucial link between us, the people, and the giant machinery of government. And this is where you see the real kind of beautiful design of it all. Democracy absolutely needs both winners and losers to function properly. The ruling party, they get to implement their vision. But the opposition has a job that's just as important: to question, to criticize, and to represent everyone who didn't vote for the government. Honestly, without a strong opposition, you don't really have a democracy at all. So this all brings up a pretty fascinating question. If parties are so vital, what's the magic number? 1, 2, or maybe hundreds? Let's take a quick look at how this whole thing plays out around the world. To get a sense of the scale here, just look at this number. In India, a huge and incredibly diverse democracy, there are over 750 political parties officially registered. Now, of course, only a handful are really serious contenders in national elections, but it just goes to show the sheer variety of political expression that can exist. And this table illustrates the main trade-offs perfectly. So, look at the top. A one-party system like China's gives you 0 real voter choice, but hey, the government is super stable. In the middle, you get 2-party systems, like in the US or the UK. Your choice is pretty limited, but it forces the parties to be these big tents, building broad support before an election, which usually leads to stable governments. Then at the bottom, you have multi-party systems, like India's. You get a ton of choice, but that can lead to less stability, because governments often have to be patched together in messy coalitions after the election. And here is the absolute crucial point. A country doesn't just pick one of these systems from a menu. A party system evolves over decades, sometimes centuries. Think about it. A country as socially and geographically diverse as India could probably never be truly represented by just 2 parties. Its multi-party system is a direct reflection of its complex society. It just makes sense. So, okay, we've got these different systems, each one a product of its own unique history. But here's the thing. No matter the system, parties everywhere seem to be facing a very similar set of deep structural problems. Let's dig into the 4 biggest challenges they all share. And here is the first great irony. Political parties are supposed to be the pillars of democracy, but a whole lot of them don't actually practice it inside their own walls. Power often gets concentrated in the hands of a tiny group of leaders at the top, and they're the ones making all the key decisions, often without even consulting the ordinary members. Now, that lack of internal democracy directly feeds into the second big challenge: dynastic succession. When a few leaders hold all the power, They tend to give, let's say, unfair advantages to their family members or their closest friends. And that means top positions can be inherited rather than earned, which is just fundamentally unfair and really bad for democracy. Next up, you've got the growing influence of money and, well, muscle. Since the number one goal is just to win elections no matter the cost, parties sometimes take shortcuts. They might nominate candidates not because they're the most qualified, but because they're rich enough to fund their own campaign, or in some cases, because their connections can help guarantee a win. And all of this leads to a challenge that I think a lot of voters feel personally. In recent years, those deep ideological differences between the major parties have really started to shrink. When you look at big economic policies, for example, a lot of the parties start to sound, well, pretty similar. This leaves voters feeling like they don't have a meaningful choice at all, just different shades of the same color. So with all these really serious, interconnected problems, is the system just broken beyond repair, or are there actually ways to fix it? Let's take a look at what's already been tried and what could be coming next.
People are definitely trying to make things better. In India, for example, an anti-defection law was passed to stop politicians from just switching parties whenever it suited them after an election. The Supreme Court now makes every single candidate publicly declare their wealth and any criminal cases against them. And the Election Commission has pushed parties to at least go through the motions of holding internal elections. But, as you can imagine, a lot of people argue these steps just don't go far enough. Some of the big ideas for the future include creating a law to actually regulate the internal democracy of parties, making it mandatory to give a certain percentage of tickets to women to improve representation, and maybe even having the state fund elections to cut down on the influence of big money. But here is a really critical takeaway. Real reform isn't just about new laws passed from the top down. It's also about pressure from the outside, from the bottom up. When citizens and the media and social movements all demand better, parties are forced to listen. If they feel like they might lose public support, you'd be surprised how much more serious they get about reform. Which leaves us with this final, kind of provocative thought. If we're all so frustrated with the state of our politics, is criticizing from the sidelines really enough? Or is the only way to truly fix bad politics for more good people to decide that it's just too important to be left to someone else and to get directly involved themselves? It's something to think about.